Today we are back on Fortune's Keep talking about some common mistakes that I see players make that are really holding you back from getting higher kills and making the adjustment on Fortune's Keep. We're going to be doing that and talking about that while spectating some quads here. One of my favorite things to do, really get insight into how other people are actually playing here. Now, one of the most common mistakes, I want to jump right into this here while this guy's flying around in the heli. Let's go ahead and switch it up and see who else we got here. So as we're switching, one of the most common mistakes that I see players make is lack of understanding about pace of play. You know, Rebirth for the most part is very go, go, go. You're constantly moving, constantly repositioning. The pace of play differs on Fortune's Keep. There's certain times where you're going to be playing a little bit slower, playing a little bit more positioning. There's certain times where you're going to be finessing more and really starting to play a little bit more aggressive, constantly moving. And that comes down to two things. One is going to be the situation that you're in, but two is also the area that you're in. You know, Keep is very much a fast-paced area, right? It's the buildings, it's close quarters. You're constantly moving and anticipating. Winery, very close quarters, so you're going to be constantly moving and anticipating, using your SMG a lot, unless you're shooting at a place like camp or lighthouse or somewhere around there. Whereas somewhere like grotto and town are generally a mix of both. You're going to have a mix of long-range fights that are more about positioning and more short-range fights when you're finessing somebody and playing in those buildings. So you want to keep that in mind when it comes to where you are actually playing. The other thing I will say is, you know, a place like Gatehouse, is kind of a mix because you can play your long range towards grotto, you can play towards graveyard a little bit, or, you know, or over in this market area, but it's also super close range. So that understanding about pace of play, when to slow down a little bit, try to see what you can find, and we're going to talk more about this here in a second, but there's also sometimes where you got to play a little bit quicker, use that finesse ability to your advantage. Now right here, we're going to go ahead and drop loadout. We got a pretty good team, it looks like, right here. We've got some, obviously some TTV players that are live, but overall we've got level 62 right here, level 105, level 350, and we've got level 328. Now, mistake number two that I see is going to be about a plan of action. We've got loadout right here. You have to understand that this map's a little bit different than Rebirth. Rebirth, I always talk about the importance of information. Real quick, by the way, before we get into that, if you are looking to get better Rebirth or Fortune's Keep, just consider subscribing down below. I do videos every single day just trying to help people get better, really trying to cover both maps. I need to do a little bit more Fortune's Keep content, but on Rebirth, I talk about the importance of information, constantly understanding where people are, but you can get away with it a little bit more than you can on Fortune's Keep. Right here, they're just trying to see, you know, obviously long-range situation right here. We've got the M13 with no scope, good shots right there. On Fortune's Keep, the reason it's so important is because of that third-party dynamic. When we look at the big map right here, you know, we've kind of got a few hot areas. We've got Town is a big area, we've got Keep, we've got Winery, and then we've got this section right here, which is where everybody kind of ends up pushing towards, or they stay in basically the place where circle's rotating. And why I highlight that is because third-party situations are going to happen all of the time. The only way to counter a third-party situation is to understand that you're actually in it. So when you talk about having a plan, you really need to start to figure out where people are. You need to be popping UAVs to prevent those third-party situations from actually happening. Now, right here, we're going to talk about positioning. Notice that they have a lot of positioning with cover. They're not just flying into, you know, the area and trying to just ego and 1v3. You know, they are playing a little bit more strategic. He's going to go challenge around this corner with the live ping. Guy pushing right behind him. Yep, they're going to get stacked right here. He's got the dual pistols of some sort, and positioning is so crucial on this map, specifically positioning with cover. Always paying attention to where you go. And the reason I told you, I talked in this order, right? We talked about pace of play because you're going to have that mix of fast and slow paced gunfights. Then we talk about having a plan. Well, if we're going to change up that pace, we got to have a plan of how exactly we need to go about pushing that, right? If there are 4 people in a building, we're going to have to play that a little bit slower. This is a level 350 right here, keeping his team alive. Obviously, he's got teammates back, and he's trying to see what he can find right here. 21.6 over to the right. He's flying in. He's right above you. Yeah, there you go. Hit your shots. Go challenge. You have the advantage right here. He's got loadout. Get the down and get the thirst. Use that information that you have. So, you know, the pace of play is kind of going to depend on what you see and what you find on the minimap right down below. Good hip fire right there. They get the team wipe. He's got 5 kills, off to a very good start right here. So we talked about pace of play, changing up the speed of those fights, understanding, you know, when to play a little bit slower, trying to get that initial knock or maybe 2 kills at range, and then going and starting to push in, because you don't want a situation where you're getting shot from a lot of angles. This map has a lot of cover. It has a lot of places to finesse, but you also have situations where it's very easy to get caught out in the open. Good shots right there with the NZ. NZ's not really meta when it comes to TTK. The biggest benefit with the NZ is it's still very, very easy to use. So then we talk about positioning with cover, constantly being aware of where can you go if you need to heal up, replate, or reload. I kind of want to... Good shots right there. Notice a little bit of strafing while shooting allows him to increase that aim assist if he is on controller, allows him to get those shots. If you didn't know that, strafing while shooting, moving left and right increases your aim assist. So next up, we talked about positioning with cover. We talked about having a plan. We talked about pace of play. Let's talk about rotations. You know, when it comes to rotations, there's two things that I want you to understand. The first is, unlike Rebirth, you could actually fight an entire game in one area. So anybody that landed town here, right? Circle is clearly pulling to town. Anybody that is fighting in town here or started by landing in town probably doesn't have to leave town to win this game, which if you were to look at Rebirth, the only time that happens is basically if you land like bio or chem and you just happen to not have to move. Whereas people in town here could be fighting the entire game, right? They could be dropping high kill games simply by not having to move. So we want to keep that in mind. Notice this guy gets a little bit caught out in the open. At the end of the day, he just didn't execute. He missed a few shots. He's going to get shot in the back. He gets third-partied right there, or it's the teammate. One of those two, but that's where they are so caught out in the open because they're so hyper-focused on this one player as opposed to rotating, being a little bit more aware of their cover. This guy is able to get that kill. Another one right in front of him. He's got to go challenge this. And he just didn't anticipate, but he is able to hit shots right there. I don't know what these builds are, but hey, they're rocking and rolling. They're working for them. So, unlike Rebirth, you could literally fight an entire game in Winery. You could fight an entire game in Keep or Town. Whereas on Rebirth, you know, you would never fight an entire game in Control. You would never fight an entire game in Prison. You would always end up rotating out of there at some point to go find other people. And that's simply because of the hot areas on this map. There's a lot fewer hot areas, so we don't really have to rotate as much. The other thing is pay attention to where you fight well, especially early game, in terms of when you have that decision of do I need to rotate out or not. Say you clear Winery, figure out where you actually play well. If you fight better in Keep than you do in Grotto, then your natural rotation should be to Keep. It's one thing that not a lot of you think about is, okay, where do you actually have success? Where do you feel most comfortable? Where do you feel like the audio cues work a little bit better? Where do you feel like you anticipate a little bit better? Where do you feel like on Fortune's Keep, you know the parkour spots a little bit better? I'll tell you where I fight best. I fight best in Town. So when it comes down to it, I kind of want to try to get over to Town if I can, because that fits my play style. Fast-paced. I know when to be patient. It's a constant mix of pace of play, so that allows me to be able to get the most kills possible. Let's go ahead and challenge this guy. He's gonna miss shots right there. He's got the Kilo. Kilo's back, baby. Kilo is 100% back in the meta. Kilo kind of has a few great things going for it, as I talked about in my second channel where I constantly give you loadouts. You know, it's very easy to use. The second thing is going to be the damage. Unlike most ARs, the damage profile is basically the head and then the rest of the body, whereas a lot of other guns we're using, you know, a shoulder shot is different than a chest shot. With the Kilo, everything is exactly the same. Now, the last thing that is great about it is the range. There is no damage drop off after about, you know, 52 meters with attachment, so the damage stays the same. Of course, you got to factor in bullet velocity. Now, the last thing that I'll give you, as we're now respawn disabled, a lot of you are just lacking awareness. You know, you're too focused on looting players. You're too focused on crates around you. And there's a lot of crates around this map, but you're so focused on that, and you're so focused on, you know, the little things that you're just kind of wandering out in the open without a plan. That's when you get third party. That's when you get shot from the guy in tower and you're not paying attention to your cover. Everything has to be with a purpose on this map. You're either putting yourself in a good position to challenge somebody, playing a little bit slower to get that opening knock, or you're finessing. You're challenging somebody, you're pushing through buildings, using cover to your advantage. And the moment you're not doing that is when you're bound to get rolled up on by a team that is doing that. That's when you're bound to get caught a little bit out in the open and get shot from who knows where. So those are the 5 main mistakes that I see: pace of play, positioning, plan of action, rotations, and awareness. Start to work on those and you will definitely start to drop more kills. Let's talk about this end game right here. We've got 1 kill right here. We're back to him. He's got 7, so his pace really slowed down. We've got 5 other teams. End games tend to be a little bit hotter, so you can use that to your advantage. Oh yeah, baby. Give me the snapshot. Go ahead and, yep. He's down below you somewhere. You got to rotate early here. You got to get into zone. Where is zone, by the way? Zone is all the way over this way. So anybody who's fighting in town is basically just going to be in town the entire game and not necessarily have to move. They are just, this is the third party situation, or is probably 2 teams right here. It's probably 2 teams basically fighting each other, not 3 teams. One over that way is going to go. Don't throw your snapshot there. I mean, you know exactly where this guy is. He's got battle hardened. He's going to buy a teammate back. Great play. One thing I want to talk about, and I'm going to do a short video on this very soon and give you an example of how this works endgame, is never trade 1-for-1 if you have loadout. Never put yourself in harm's way to buy a teammate back and basically like full send it and risk it, because at the end of the day, all you just did was trade your loadout guns for somebody who's now flying in with no guns. So that's just a pretty simple tip. Obviously, here UAV is going to be clutch. They've got all the information about where people are. They do get circle pulled. There's everybody's above. No, he's right behind. He's on buy station. You can't miss this on the radar. He literally just bought back right behind you. He literally just bought back right behind you. Yeah. Good shots there. You got to push in. Uh-oh. Is he dead? Nope. He's got a quick plate. He's got to buy plates here. He's got to buy plates. A lot of people around him. A lot of people to his left. You got to challenge this carefully. This is about positioning with cover. He's got good positioning. He's got cover. Yep. It should be straight ahead of you, but he needs to buy plates. He needs to buy plates, and then he's in a good position to keep challenging. Although he has low ground right here, which isn't good. You know, he's constantly going to be fighting people that are going to be shooting down on him. He's going to buy plates. Good play. Good play right there. Did he? Yep. Okay, so now he's got to push. Uh-oh. 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 He might be stuck. He does not have stims right here. He does not want to slide cancel at all. You know, here you see why slide canceling is so important. Reset your tac sprint, and that's why he dies right there. Just not a slide cancel in sight. Oh, and that's the win right there. So I hope you've done today's video helpful about the 5 mistakes that I see. Start to work on these and drop higher kill games. As I always say, let's get better today, and I will see you tomorrow.